Welcome, everyone. It's Petty Officer Romero with Job Corps, and we have another training for you in the line of security, law enforcement, and military. And today's subject, terrorism, something that is more prevalent in the world, and maybe because news is traveling faster, we hear more about terrorism than we ever had before. I don't know if there's necessarily more terrorism or it's just more readily available, the news, the things that are going on around the world. But today, what we want to talk about is several things. There'll be two videos here. The first one, we're going to define terrorism. We're going to describe the cell organization of terrorism. We're going to describe the role of the security officer, protective service officers, and police officers in detecting, reporting, and preventing operations of terrorist activities. We'll then describe the similarities between preparing for a terrorist attack in the past and be able to describe terrorist attacks and disasters. And then we'll be able to describe what terrorist groups have done to prepare for these attacks in the past. And lastly, today in this video, we're going to describe the role of physical security, personal security, and information security in developing a terrorist protection plan. Because keep in mind, terrorism isn't always just people out there with guns and bombs. You know, now you have cyber attacks, and it's every bit as effective in terrorism as a personal attack. So let's begin, and we're going to start off with understanding the basics or the definition of terrorism. So let's start off here. All right. Terrorism is the unlawful use of force, violence against a person or property to intimidate or coerce a government or its citizens to further certain political or social objectives. Now, before I get on to the rest of it, what I want to explain that. What that's saying is basically you're using fear to get what you want in society. So it's one thing to say, and there can be, I don't know if you'd call it lower cases of terrorism where you can have terroristic threats. But for the most part, if you're beating somebody else up for lunch money, that's not necessarily terrorism. But terrorism is when you're trying to advance a political goal or a social goal. In other words, you like something about society. You think there should be, you think there shouldn't be sports. So what you start doing is blowing up stadiums. Now everybody's scared to go to football games because they're scared they might get blown up. That's terrorism. Robbing a bank and threatening to tell her that you're going to shoot her if she doesn't give you the money. Well, that's not terrorism. Okay. So let's move forward. Let's see. Law enforcement generally recognizes two types of terrorism: domestic and international. Domestic terrorist is based on executed in the United States. So domestic terrorism happens on the shores of the United States by our own citizens without foreign direction. International terrorism, which is connected to foreign governments or groups, transcends our nation's boundaries, meaning outside of the United States. It could be Canada, it could be the Middle East, it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be anywhere, Mexico, anything that's not the United States. Terrorist acts against the United States citizens can occur anywhere in the world. Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. Obviously, the two different types of terrorism: domestic and then you have international terrorism. And so you can have a person. I think terrorism is generally thought to be a foreign person from another country coming here, or even going to American outlets across the globe. So in other words, it doesn't have to be an American, but if you blow up an American embassy in France, then that's an attack on Americans, a terrorist attack on Americans. Okay. And a lot of times, many times, these terrorists have ideas of things they want to change socially. They're not trying to get money. What they're trying to do is tell you that we don't like a war that's going on and we want you to stop. So instead of fighting the war, they come after American citizens. in an effort to scare the government into stopping whatever they're doing in fear that the terrorists might hurt American citizens. Not a very effective policy, but it continues to happen. And again, in no way am I defending this, but when you have a small group of people and you can't stand up against the army, what do? You find small ways to stop these people from advancing their agenda, and you can only do that by being disruptive. So what they try to do is just disrupt what you're doing with small attacks and hurting people, but they do it. They don't ever have a uniform on. They don't ever do it where you know it's coming. They don't run out in the middle of the street and start, not that they don't shoot guns, but the point is they do it in a way that you don't realize it's coming. So when they walk into a market and start shooting people, there was no warning. It wasn't a war zone. It's not against the military. And some people may not understand that. You know, war is two countries, their militaries versus one another. It is still, I don't know if you want to go into legalities of it, but it's basically illegal for a country to attack another country, attack their citizens, right? So you can only attack military things, or else you're in breach of many various Geneva Convention, the agreements that countries make in order to protect the innocent lives of civilians. So in other words, generally speaking, as a military, you're not going to run in there and blow up a daycare center. You'll blow up a airport, military airport, and blow up the military airplanes. You'll blow up a munitions depot so you can blow up their explosives and weapons, but you're not going to go up and blow up a football game with innocent people. So there's kind of the difference between a terrorist and a civilian, right? So, or a terrorist and military. Military will fight and destroy military objectives. So if I'm trying to disarm a country, I'm not going to blow up their citizens at a soccer game. I'm going to blow up their military sites, right? So we kind of understand that. All right, let's talk about a cell organization of a terrorist group. Okay, so a terrorist group can be a large entity, a large group of people, right? So it's not just 5 people or 10 people. It can be, but generally these terrorist groups that we're most concerned about are going to be large groups. And that could be, let's just say a large group, meaning the group could be, it could be 10,000, it could be 100,000 people who are in this organization, members of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or one of these terrorist groups, right? But they might recruit certain people for specialized training, right? And then what they do is they generally send out cells. Now, a terrorist cell, all that is a small group of people, maybe 5 people, and they have an objective. And they might have, let's say the objective is to, in this terrorist situation that we're creating, is to blow up a football stadium, right? So we want to blow up that stadium. What we'll do is we'll send 2 or 3 terrorist cells out. And maybe 2 of them have the objective of blowing up a stadium, but one of them has the objective of blowing up a bus depot or something, a library. And many times that library might be just a distraction so that they can get the police or authorities focused on something other than their primary target, right? So they're not trying to blow up the library. That's not their objective, but it's a distraction. So what they do is they blow up the library, all the police, all the FBI, everybody's over here near the place that they blew up, and then it makes it easier for them to blow up their primary target, which would, in this case, I said a football stadium. So that's what a cell is. Now let's describe the role of security and protective services in detecting and reporting, okay, preventing the operations of terrorism.
It's Franklin.
Come in.
We've got the warrant for the airport house.
Okay, prep tactical and air support.
Roger that.
Clear right, we're clear overhead. Stand by, ready for takeoff. Roger that. SWAT and the bomb squad are already en route. Air 8 to ground units, we're airborne. ETA to target 7 minutes.
Roger, Air 8. We are approaching target now.
Air 8 to ground units, showing no activity. Clear to approach. Air 8 repositioning to outer marker.
On my command, you'll make entry. These guys may have bomb-making materials.
Bomb techs are standing by.
After we hook them up, you're in and searching.
Roger that.
Initiate the plan.
It's your hands! It's your hands!
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get down! Get on the ground! Put your hands out in front of you!
Captain, we've got ammonium nitrate fertilizer, igniters, timers, and these.
Critical city infrastructures.
Soft targets as well.
Looks like a coordinated attack. This could have been a disaster.
Captain, I think you need to see this. It started with a hotline call from a garden supply employee.
This guy was just acting weird.
Weird how?
It didn't seem like a typical customer. It's pretty obvious he didn't know a thing about landscaping. He asked a lot of questions about pool and lawn chemicals, and he didn't even know which kind of grass he had. And then he wanted to order a huge amount of ammonium nitrate fertilizer.
How much?
Enough for 2 football fields. Well, he paid cash and loaded it in the van himself. I asked him if he wanted help, but he just ignored me.
Ammonium nitrate. That was used in the Oklahoma City bombing. Did you get his license plate?
No, the license plate was missing. But the van did have some damage on the side, and the taillight was busted.
If you remember anything else, call me. Thanks for calling it in. Next, we get a suspicious activity report on the iWatch website from a security guard.
Can you tell me more about the suspicious vehicle?
We saw a white truck on 3 separate shifts parked in the red zone. Now, this isn't unusual, but no one got out to load or unload anything. And then the last time it happened, the driver just gets out and he hangs around. Looks like he's taking pictures.
Could have been a dry run. See if you're paying attention, maybe take pictures of your surveillance cameras.
No, I saw that in that iWatch website. That's why I called it in.
Thanks. Call me if you see that truck again. We'll dispatch a patrol unit.
At this point, we didn't have a link between the guy with the fertilizer and the truck in front of the office building. Then we get a call from a citizen, and things all start to link together.
According to your hotline call, you're concerned about your new neighbors.
Well, at first it was just the noise waking me up. But then I looked to see what they were doing. They were unloading gas cans in large bags from the van. I could smell diesel fumes.
How many people are living there?
I saw 3 of them. 2 guys and a woman.
Anything about the van?
White, scraped on the side.
Call me if you see any more unusual behavior, but don't make contact.
We do a drive by the house. Don't see a van, but we see a truck. The truck plates match the partial from the security guard.
Who owns the house?
It's a rental. The landlord gave us the tenant's ID from the rental agreement. Next, we show the picture to the garden supply guy and the next door neighbor. Both say it's the same guy driving the van.
Did you run the photo by the FBI?
Yeah, he's not wanted, but he has been photographed with an overseas terrorist. We show a photo of the terrorist to the security guard who ID'd him as the guy driving the truck. Now we know the incidents are linked. These tips really helped us piece it all together. I think we have enough for a warrant, and I think we have to act fast.
Agreed. Get the warrant. Take these guys down.
What you've just seen is an example of how your community, local law enforcement, and federal agencies can work together by sharing information to prevent terrorist attacks.
All right, there you go. So what you saw there is an example, kind of a role-playing situation where the police linked up several things from tips that came from the community, right? Obviously important because, you know, the police can't see everything if the community's not helping out and letting the police and authorities know what's going on. So that's how security, you notice they talked to the security guy at the place because the terrorists pulled their van up and they kind of started taking pictures, and he's like, wait, that's unusual. So they took the security guy plus the people over at the the supply house. It looked like, you know, like a Home Depot, Lowe's, or whatever, where they were getting things that were just unusual, and it gets reported. And the police start putting things together, and that's how they catch a guy. Now, it gets a lot more complicated than that, but in general, that's how, you know, let's keep it simple kind of thing, and that's how they can figure these things out. Now, let's security protective service. Let's see, reporting and preventing the operation of terrorism. I think it was all kind of covered there in that little video. And let's describe the similarities between preparing for terrorist attacks and disasters. Now, look, you have different types of disasters, right? And we have a subject on that itself. But, you know, you got hurricanes and you got fires and you have ice storms. And at the end of the day, preparing for a terrorist attack, you need to make sure that you have all of you're prepared, and that means what if a terrorist knocks out the electricity for quite a while, or you don't have access to grocery stores, or people are injured. So you want to be prepared for all those things. You want to have your kit, your first aid kits available. You want to have some food available. You know, like, it's always smart to have a little bit of something in case there's a problem, right? You know, we had issues in the winter with electricity, you know, so you know, it's important that you figure out a way that you can make it 3 or 4 days if you happen to lose electricity. We can describe some ways that terrorist groups have prepared in the past. Let's look at 9/11, right? 9/11, these guys learned how to fly airplanes here. I mean, in hindsight, there was so much stuff that seemed a little odd, but we were like, well, you know, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings or call them out for something that may not be true, may not be the case. So how do we prevent it? Well, we have to be aware, and if we see something strange, we have to report it, right? So anyway, these guys went and they learned how to fly planes. They got on board airplanes and started figuring out ways they can get weapons onto the airplanes. They coordinated the attacks. So there's all kinds of ways, man. And the video was really great because it was simple. It was 5 minutes, and it showed you different ways that people can prepare. Next thing, let's see. Describe the role of physical security, personal security, and information security in developing an anti-terrorist plan. Well, these things are very complicated, but at the end of the day, again, it goes back to communication and reporting things that seem unusual, okay? You see something as just really weird, you just have to let somebody know. You have to report it to police, to the FBI, or whatever is necessary to get that thing finished. All right, so that's going to be the end of this video. We're going to obviously have a lot more to talk about, but this is a starting point, right? So let's discuss this and see where the conversation takes us. So for Job Corps, Petty Officer Romero, we'll see you on the next video.